The Biden administration says it now finds the theory that coronavirus leaked from a Wuhan lab to be just as credible as the theory that it developed naturally. This is a dramatic shift coming amid an intelligence review that President Biden demanded. So let's bring in CNN political analyst and Washington Post columnist Josh Rogin. He's the author of Chaos Under Heaven and has been extensively covering the investigations into the origin of the coronavirus. And Stephen Goldstein. He is the virologist at the University of Utah and one of the scientists who released a paper setting out their strongest case for COVID-19 emerging from an animal and pushing back hard against the lab leak theory. So, Mr. Goldstein, let me start with you here. This weekend, the nation's top doctor, Anthony Fauci, on CNN. And here's what he said, because it defends your point. Take a listen.
I, together with many highly qualified vaccinologists, including and virologists, including a recent paper by 21 internationally renowned virologists and evolutionary biologists from all over the world, indicate that although we keep an open mind, that it is possible that it could be, as they say, a lab leak, that the most likely explanation is a natural evolution from an animal reservoir to a human.
So, Stephen, you were one of the virologists contending that there is more evidence to support natural spillover from animals to humans rather than a lab leak. But the Biden administration really changing the equation of likelihood. What do you make of Fauci's comments and the Biden administration's new positioning of this?
Well, I agree with Dr. Fauci's comments, of course, particularly since he cited our paper as one of his lines of evidence. With respect to the Biden administration, what I've seen on that front was that there wasn't really any new significant evidence, but that opinions were shifting about the existing evidence. So I'm not really sure exactly why. I hope that people in the administration will take a look at what we've set out, which is to really just take a critical scientific look at the evidence that's available, strip away the suspicion and the innuendo, and just look at the open source data that's in front of us. And our belief is that it's much more likely this came from an animal.
All right, Josh, counterpoint, the Biden administration making this admission halfway through this 90-day intelligence review. What does that tell you? What is your sources telling you about this incredible statement that really does shift the equation?
Right. Well, Anthony Fauci and Dr. Goldstein are entitled to their opinion. There are plenty of scientists who agree with them, and there are plenty of scientists who disagree with them, including top virologists, including Robert Redfield, the former head of the CDC, and David Baltimore, the former president of Caltech, who take a look at this virus and say there's plenty of indication that it might have been linked to the lab in some way and that we need to check out the lab. And so that's why I think a lot of people will say, okay, well, the scientists all disagree. There's no scientific consensus. Let's just check out both theories and see where it leads. And then, as for the Biden administration, I think what CNN reported was not that they changed their opinion based on no evidence, because we don't know that. We know that they're engaged in a review of the intelligence, both the open source and the non-open source. They've got access to a lot more information than me, than you, John, more information than Stephen Goldstein. And so we don't know that there's no new evidence. That's not correct. We just don't know what they're finding, okay? And they've got a lot of resources. It's not just about the science either, right? They have intercepts and intelligence and human sources and a lot, what we already know from what the Biden administration already released is that they've confirmed the Trump administration is reporting that there were sick researchers who were hospitalized with COVID-like symptoms. That there was another side of the lab, the side that they didn't tell us about, where they were doing coronavirus research with the Chinese military. So there's a lot of stuff we don't know. So I think we should just not jump to any conclusions and not say that either side is more likely, and just say honestly that we don't know and that we have to check out both theories. Both are plausible. And I think that's what the Biden administration is trying to do. And as they're doing it, if they're finding that the lab leak theory is coming out at least as likely as the natural origin theory, well, then I think we should take that seriously, because it's not just about the wonderful science that I'm sure Dr. Goldstein and his colleagues are putting out. It's about all of the other things that go into what the forensic investigation of how we got into this mess. And the actual science is actually only one small part of it.
Stephen, to that point, you say it's more likely, vastly more likely that it begins from nature rather than a lab, but you also cite based on open source information, the data we have to date. Given that you're fairly certain that that's the case, why do you think that China refuses to share information the critical data and information that could actually help us come to a conclusion? If they weren't covering something up, why are they hiding it?
So I think the Chinese probably are hiding things. The argument that they're hiding things with respect to the lab is one side of this, but actually the best evidence we have of them hiding things relates to wildlife markets. If you look at the WHO investigation, they reported that they were told by Chinese government officials that there were no live mammals sold at the Huanan market in Wuhan, or presumably particularly even other markets. And in fact, we know that that was false, categorically. A paper was recently published by Chinese wildlife researchers who found that at 4 markets in Wuhan, tens of thousands of animals were sold up to November 2019, including animals we know were susceptible to SARS-CoV-2. So while it's certainly true that the Chinese government is hiding things, it's simply false to say that the things they're hiding relate specifically to the lab. It's across the board and perhaps even skewed towards trying to conceal a link between this virus and wildlife markets.
Josh,
I just have to say that,
please.
The WHO investigation that already took place extensively investigated the wildlife market theory. Tens of thousands of animals were tested. 0 that were linked to the coronavirus outbreak were found. And the investigation, which was done jointly with the Chinese government, was not allowed to investigate the lab in any serious way. They took down the virus database of the Wuhan Institute of Virology in December 2019. They've not allowed even the WHO investigators to look at the data. So I don't know what the preponderance of the evidence is, but there's a lot of cover-up going on at the lab. I think that's what everyone can agree. And I think Dr. Tedros, the head of the WHO, is the one who said it most clearly. He said there was a premature push to dismiss the lab leak theory. That's what he said when he, taking issue with his own WHO study team. So, we have to remember here that the Chinese government disavowed the Wuhan market theory. The Chinese CDC said the market was not an origin event, that it was an amplifying event. And we also have to look very skeptically at the information that the Chinese government puts out, because they've shut down most of the science, and then the little science that they do let out has to be viewed with a skeptical eye because of the system that they are there. And the point is that, again, it doesn't really matter which one you like. It doesn't matter which one you really think in your heart of hearts is true. We just have to investigate both of them. And we haven't investigated the lab. And I think that the Biden administration is trying to do that the best they can. They keep running up against these scientists who are like, oh, don't look at the lab, don't look at the lab. But I think what we have to just say is we have to look at both the natural origin theory and the lab leak theory, and without any biases or pre-conclusions whatsoever.
Stephen, just to be
John,
clear,
if I could, yeah.
If I may, just, you've got the Chinese CDC saying it wasn't in the wet market, but to your larger point, there haven't been exactly reliable narrators. I guess my question is, given the history of lab leaks that we've seen in epidemiology, why do you feel that is a door that should be largely closed?
Well, I think in our paper we said it can't be entirely dismissed, and we certainly welcome the Biden administration's review. The question is, where are we going to focus our efforts? And the truth is that this event looks a lot like the SARS coronavirus 1 emergence in 2002, which wasn't linked to animals until 2003, and the markets weren't closed, and that's why that worked. There's no evidence. I think Josh, unfortunately, is misinformed on a few points. While there was some animal testing done, there's no indication any animals were tested that were in Wuhan markets in fall and early winter 2019, because the Chinese government claimed that those animals didn't exist, and it turns out they did. The cover-up of this virus database that Josh points to that was deleted in December 2019 was in fact deleted in September 2019, which means if you think that that's related to the pandemic, it would have to be some sort of preemptive cover-up, since the virus likely didn't emerge until November. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. I
want to give Josh a chance to respond to that.
Yeah,
Josh.
I mean, Robert Redfield said on CNN that he believes the first cases date back to the fall, September, October. So again, well-meaning scientists like Stephen Goldstein and Robert Redfield totally disagree on the science of this. And I'm just glad to hear that Stephen Goldstein is now endorsing an investigation into the lab leak theory. I think that's progress in the discussion, because he said, don't close off either one. He said we can investigate both. So I'd like to thank Stephen Goldstein for giving us permission to look into the lab leak theory, and that way we can just look into both of them, and then we can figure it out. We can talk again once we've actually done that, and I appreciate Stephen Goldstein's endorsement of that.
Well, Stephen, I want if we can get to common ground, that's great. I want to make sure you consider that even a mildly fair characterization of your position, because if you haven't closed the door entirely, you think there should be more investigation to determine the true origin. Is that correct?
We certainly think there should be more investigation to determine the true origin. We think that those investigations should focus on animal sourcing, because to not do that or to not focus on that would cost us the opportunity to find out how this very likely started. Dr. Redfield's comments, Josh's claim that it started in September 2019.
Not my claim.
Colleagues of mine have studied this very closely and determined it most likely emerged in November 2019 based on scientific analysis that Josh hasn't done. And I don't think Dr. Redfield, frankly, has done himself either. And I just take issue with Josh repeatedly referring to this as an opinion. The paper we put out is a scientific analysis. People are certainly entitled to disagree with it.
And they do.
For both scientific or other reasons. But it's not just our opinions. This is decades, hundreds of years of collective experience that we brought to bear on this, examining both arguments for how this may have emerged and finding pretty convincingly that it most likely emerged via an animal source. Doesn't mean we can't take a look at the lab, as Dr. Tedros suggested, but to weight that as heavily as an animal origin, we're going to miss finding out the truth if we do that.
Yeah.
Well, I think just we've got to move on. We will continue this conversation
no one's saying don't look into the
we need
the animals.
all the information to come out and to view it without fear or favor. Josh Rogert, Stephen Goldstein, light and heat from you both this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
All right, we've also got new pressure on the Supreme Court's senior liberal to retire. Fascinating conversation and insights coming up next.